And a good morning to you. Welcome. It's Martin, Jeff, and the Farmchick coming to you high atop the Eagle Building in beautiful downtown Goodland on Eagle Cable Channel 10, KLOE AM radio, and streaming from our Facebook page, Martin, Jeff, and the Farmchick. Brought to you by Eckland Insurance LLC, Northwest Tech, the Insurance Agency, Elliott's Home Furnishings, and Goodland Sonic Drive-In. And this week we've got a special treat. There is no Farmchick and there's no Jeff, but we do have one of my favorite people in Goodland, Kansas, Father Norbert DeLabel from Our Lady of Perpetual Help Catholic Church here in Goodland, at least for another week or so, right, Father?
Yes.
For those who, I can't imagine there's very few people in Goodland that don't know who you are after 16 years here in the parish.
True. Mm-hmm.
So why is it you're leaving us then?
Well, it's just that I have kind of decided to retire. I'm 82 years old, and I can tell my energy level is going down, and I just thought, I look ahead, and I might be expected to be somewhere and won't be able to get there. That's not a very good feeling. So, yeah.
Well, you're amazing at 82 years old, I guarantee you. What I find fascinating is you've told us a couple of times now that in your entire 82 years, you've spent more time in Goodland than any other one location, right?
That's the truth. 16 years here in Goodland. I've been to many other places, but not for a period of 16 years in any one of them.
Mm-hmm. You are a native of Wilson, correct?
Wilson, Kansas, about 45 miles east of Hayes along Interstate Highway 70. Yeah.
Which is notable in amongst Kansas as being a Czech community.
That's correct.
Is that correct? You grew up with a Czech family.
Mm-hmm. And the parish there is called St. Wenceslas. He was the king of Bohemia by year 1000. Mm-hmm. And both my parents are Czech, nationality or ethnicity. Mm-hmm. And so I'm 100% Czech myself.
I think you've got an interesting story with how you decided to become a priest, and it didn't happen just overnight. It took quite a while, right?
It did. I graduated from Wilson High School. Of course, I went to Kansas State University studying mechanical engineering, and it was during that year that I felt the call, shall I say, to do something else, and then finally came out as a priesthood, being a priest.
Mm-hmm. As I recall the story you told us, though, you took some time out. You had studied. Was it in Kentucky or
St. Mary's, Kentucky, my minor seminary or the college level stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then decided not to. Then you took a break from that.
Well, I was sent to Rome after that. After I graduated from the college level seminary, I was entering the professional school, which is called theology. And was sent to Rome for that. Excuse me, my voice. I sent to Rome to study at the North American College there in Rome. And but as I spent a year there and enjoyed it thoroughly, it was there when Pope Pius XII died and Pope John XXIII was elected Pope. And I was there with all that stuff in St. Peter's Square watching. It was exciting as ever. But my studies were suffering, and I wasn't keeping up with my academics. Well, therefore, as time went on, I said, I'm going to need a little more time. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And you came back to Kansas or Missouri?
Right. I came back to Kansas just to kind of get resituated, you might say, and rebooted.
So you became a priest, full-fledged priest, 47 years ago, right?
At 46, June the 10th, 1972 is when I was ordained.
Mm-hmm. What was your first parish?
St. Mary's in Hayes. As an associate there, not the pastor, associate with Monsignor Gerard, who people around here would remember real well. Yeah,
absolutely. And how many years were you at St. Mary's then?
3.5 years there, from where I went to the Catholic Student Center at Kansas State University. So where I'd been as a student before, I finally came back to a number of years to be the chaplain there. Enjoyed it thoroughly.
Well, I was going to say, how was that experience? Is that something you enjoyed?
Oh, wonderful, rewarding, exciting. Oh, yeah, the students, they're so alive and interested in learning and full of energy. Oh, absolutely wonderful years. Mm-hmm.
Was Monsignor Gerard in that position at one time too?
When he retired from here in Goodland, he went and lived at the Student Center for a while. I wasn't there anymore, but he went and lived for a little while. Yeah, just a period of time.
Through the years, flash forward, something you'd always wanted to do was to you wanted to serve abroad, I think, and specifically in South America, and that finally happened kind of later in your career, right?
That's correct. As long as my father was living, I was not really free to break away and just leave him there at home. He was getting old, and he finally died at 92 and a half in 1995, at which time I was a bit freed up to do things, and which I took advantage of it. And my bishop let me go, and I went and worked in Peru for 5 years.
And while you were there, or before you went, did you learn to speak Spanish? Is this correct?
Yes, I knew some Italian, and Italian and Spanish is quite closely related, and so to adjust or learn Spanish wasn't that totally difficult. But I went to the institute in Cochabamba, Bolivia, to get a course of like 6-month course.
You've since been back to Peru, I think, a time or two, and you go back and you meet with some of the parishioners that you served?
Oh, yes, I do. I go back. I've been about 3 or 4 times now, and I may go back one more time. I'm getting a little older now, but I still can do that. I think I might.
So you come to Goodland 16 years ago. Let's see, that would be 2002?
July 1st, 2002.
I joined the church 26 years ago, when Monsignor Gerard was here, and at the time we were always kind of told, well, your priest will be here for a period of maybe 5 years, or in some cases 10 years or whatever. How is it that you've been in Goodland for 16 years?
Well, actually, canon law gives a pastor a term of 6 years, renewable once, making a total of 12, and when that's up, more than likely it's going to change. However, at that point, I was already beyond the age of what I could have retired, and the bishop thought, why move me for just maybe a couple more years in another place, rather leave me finish it out here, and that's what it turned out.
Was that rewarding to you? Were you glad that you stayed?
Yeah, I was, sure.
Move on someplace else?
Yeah, no, just glad I could stay here further.
I think we have a pretty good parish and a pretty good situation here in Goodland, and you, as we complete this look at your past and your years, over the years, you move on now to Salina. And what are you going to do in Salina?
Well, I'll be called a retired priest in residence at the cathedral. There's living quarters there, and they were vacant. I was available, so that's what we moved in. But at the same time, I'll have some responsibilities toward the Hispanic community down there. There's a pretty good sized Hispanic community in Salina, and they can use a little help. And
you fill in for Mass from time to time, I'm sure.
Right. There's 2 priests there now. They take care of the community, but they saw a little extra help would be a good thing.
In the meantime, Father Rockers is coming here as you leave, and he was here a couple of years ago too, right?
See, he's been here. He's been the associate now for the last 2 years, along with up at St. Francis in Bird City. But now he will become the leader or the head. We don't have a bishop right now, and the administrator cannot assign a pastor, only an administrator. It's just kind of a technical term, but that's the way it is. So
you kind of moved on to the next series of questions I'm going to ask you about. You say we were without a bishop, but one has been appointed.
Just recently been nominated.
I remember when I joined the church, Bishop George was the bishop, and I think he was there for quite a few years.
About 25 years, I think. Yeah.
And so I kind of lost track on his replacements. But one of the bishops moved up to the Arizona parish, right?
Well, Bishop Fitzsimmons retired, and he was about 80-some when he finally got retired as well. And then we got Bishop Paul Coakley, came up from Wichita.
That's it. Yeah.
And he was here for about 5.5 years and got moved to Oklahoma City. Then after him came Bishop Edward Weisenberger from Oklahoma City, came up to Salina. And then just last November, he was transferred down to Tucson, Arizona.
Wow. That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And so we await. It was announced Pope Francis officially signs off on who our bishop is, right?
In the end, right.
One thing I've heard, they had a wonderful dinner for you at our parish here the other night. And there's a lot of people out there that are listening or don't belong to the church, the Catholic Church. But somebody brought up the point that, as I mentioned earlier, that you have been very active in this community for 16 years and working with people of all denominations as you have been here, and what are some of the things that you've done as have you been here in Goodland?
Well, I was a member of the Ministerial Alliance, for example, and I pretty well attended all their meetings as if I possibly could through these years. I finally became the treasurer of the group, which I recently turned over now to Pastor Dan Biafus from the Calvary Gospel Church. But yeah, I was involved in that all along. And early on, we had some ecumenical services at Thanksgiving, Good Friday. That sort of discontinued after a while. I'm not even sure why, but anyhow, in the course of time, we did various number of things.
You've become well known up at the hospital too. You would meet people that again were not Catholic necessarily.
Oh yeah, all the time,
and, which is always a good thing too. Pope Francis is when he came along, kind of stirred things up a little bit as far as a pope is concerned. We all loved Pope John Paul. He was the Pope when I joined, but Francis has really made an impression with a lot of different people, right?
He's so down to earth, genuine, friendly, compassionate, just full of love. Not that Pope John Paul II was their bishop, Benedict XVI too, but every personality have their own personality and their own style, and
he is the first Pope from the Western Hemisphere.
Correct, yeah.
And Spanish-speaking Pope.
From Argentina, right.
How do you think that, is that something that we'll continue to see in the future, or how are things going to, we don't know, I guess, how they'll transpire, but...
That's true. We'll see changes, differences. When Pope John Paul II was nominated in 1978, he was the first non-Italian pope in about 400 years. Came from Poland. Well, that started things. That really started things. And of course, he was so popular and active, and did such immense things on the world stage, really. And so after him, well, Pope Benedict came from Germany or Austria, I guess. Now we have Pope Francis from Argentina. Who knows?
Yeah. You ever think there'll be an American pope? There was a TV series here a couple of years ago to that effect. That was kind of a strange show, but
I would say, why not? Who knows? Sure, I think maybe so. I don't know when.
the Catholic Church in itself, and that Pope Francis leads. There are those within the church. I'm not sure who they are. Are they cardinals? Are they bishops that don't agree with all of his philosophy?
A little difference in theology, outlook, maybe spirituality. Yeah, that's somewhat normal. But at times it might be a little excessive, it might say, or some. Sure, because Pope Francis is kind of different in the sense of not doing anything incorrect or wrong, but I don't know, say just kind of wanting to be serious, you might say, or whatever. I don't. Yeah.
These have been strange times, to say the least, as far as our government is concerned, and there's the continuing fighting in the Middle East and so forth. What do you think has to give one of these days to make things peaceful? I just, it gets so frustrating, as I'm sure you comment on once in a while.
Every human being has to have established a change of heart. People are basically born selfish. Children. They think they're the center of the state. Well, they kind of are, and they get the idea that they're the center for the rest of their lives. But they finally have to grow out of that and realize that there are other people living in this world too, equally as important, with equal same rights as they have, and learn to get along, learn to concede that truth. So until we really have a kind of a change of heart and move beyond some of our selfish notions, well, there's going to be tensions and disagreements.
But in the end, it's up to us as adults when we're raising our kids to do the right thing.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Because the point is, you commit yourself to God. No matter what you suffer in the meantime, you're going to come out okay. You might have to, really endure some trials and suffering, setbacks, but see, that stuff doesn't matter anymore when you're assured of a victory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Christianity as a whole, as strong as it's ever been, or is it suffering in some ways?
I think so. We're talking about worldwide. We often look at it from our own perspective as the United States of America, and a big part of the church, of course, but not the only part. My gosh, it's all over the world. So, in that sense, sure, it's thriving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of political issues we could talk about that when we talk about children. One big one that's going on right now as far as separating children from their parents
right.
with immigrants that are being returned to their countries, which is a very sad thing to think about. What are your thoughts about that?
Same thing. It's a very sad thing. It's heartbreaking to feel just what those children are feeling, in their own heart, crying their lungs out, and to treat a child like that, it's just not right. It's cruel,
mm-hmm.
and I don't think the Lord will approve that at all.
Same thing in general with kids that are raised in this country and are now adults, having to be returned. Another tough situation.
The DACA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think, as far as the Diocese of Salina is concerned, the diocese includes everything west of Salina, is that correct? And north of I-70?
Actually, west of Manhattan.
West of Manhattan.
Manhattan's the farthest east city in our diocese, and then generally along the I-70 corridor to the Nebraska line.
Mm-hmm. Is the church flourishing and growing within the diocese too? Our churches? Our parishes?
I would say it is. The numbers are down a little bit, however. The population is shifting somewhat from years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But still not. It's alive and growing as well.
They're always looking for new priests, right?
You're right.
And it's been interesting here from our. I'm not sure that they were both from our parish. I think they were, but from our community, we've had two priests here in just the past few years.
Right.
Become priests, or two men, one. Ranging in different ages,
mm-hmm.
So the church is always looking for a few good men, right?
Oh yeah. It really, it's a vocation from the Lord Himself. It has to be a vocation.
Right.
You can't recruit or draft individuals like that. I mean, I was one time drafted in the Army, United States Army. Spent 2 years there. They drafted me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't do that with priests. This has got to be a call from God, or it's not going to be authentic.
Right. What would you suggest that? Somebody who might be interested in becoming a priest, where do they start? If say they're in high school right now, and
I would encourage them to keep thinking about it, study it, consider it. Don't go real rapidly. Don't go. Consider every aspect, everything about it. But don't be afraid. Be courageous, and you won't make a mistake. If it's your real vocation, you'll be glad, no matter what it costs. Mm-hmm. You'll be glad that you responded positively.
How's it been for you as a priest? The other night we heard several really heartwarming stories from parishioners who have been affected by your actions as a priest. What's it like for you to be, to give last rites or to comfort somebody? Is that obviously it's something that's very good for you. Strong.
It's very satisfying, very rewarding, peaceful, joyful. Yeah, to think that you helped somebody out, you kind of made a difference in their life when they were down and helped them, and which they appreciate. But it just makes a person feel good as well,
Mm-hmm.
And
the confessional. There's always some funny stories that come about from that. But somebody the other night said that. He first met you in the confessional and was kind of trying to play you up a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And you said that you're not going to score any points with me that way or something like that. But obviously you can't talk about that, I know. But the Catholic Church, again, as a whole, any big changes you see in the future? Depending, I guess it depends on who the Pope is at the time.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. Pope Francis took the name Francis as for Francis of Assisi, because in his day, back in the 1200s, he was called by the Lord to rebuild my church. The church was suffering in those days. Lots of pomp and ceremony, and poor old Francis, a poverello, poor man. The Lord called him to rebuild the church. And about 5 years after he started the Friars Minor, they're numbered about 5,000 men in that group. Mm-hmm. Obviously made a big difference. Well, Pope Francis said we need to rebuild. He might say rebuild the church nowadays. Simply make it more true to itself. Mm-hmm. More faithful to the gospel, to the Lord Himself. That's what the goal is. We're not on our own here. It's a matter of being faithful to the Lord.
Are young people not coming back to the church when they leave as much as they used to, or are they coming back?
Well, let's give them some time. Who knows? The prodigal son, poor guy, left his home, left his father, took his share of the inheritance, went and wasted it. Huh? Took him a while, but he came to his senses and he came back. Mm-hmm. Who knows? These people, the same thing. Give them some time. We're not trying to rush them, or it's got to be their own time. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of them will. Maybe some will not. I don't know. Some will never kind of find their way back, I guess. But
some of the best members of our church and our parish have been those who've converted over from another denomination. Have you noticed that we've got some really good ones?
Yes, that's true. Usually, because it was their own decision. Mm-hmm. They thought about this. They studied it out. They learned what they needed, and they became convinced this is what the truth, and so that's why they make the more, you might say, lively and committed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in a lot of cases, as was mine, you have your whole family is in the church, and you feel kind of left out to a certain degree, and want to be involved. And I know there's a lot of young people that join because of that reason. They mm-hmm. want to be all together in the same church. I think it'd be true of any denomination, I would think.
Sure, that community, strong driving force in the life of anybody.
Well, Father, we've very much enjoyed having you here these past 16 years here in Goodland, and again, you're going to be relocating to Salina. Did you have Did you have a choice of where you could retire if you wanted?
Yeah, I did have some choice in it, but they finally asked me if I'd be willing to take up a place there in the cathedral, which I was happy to do. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I was thinking about maybe becoming the chaplain to the Sisters of St. Joseph in Concordia. They wanted me there as chaplain too, but mm-hmm. that didn't come about. But so I didn't mind, and they understood as well. So it turned out just fine.
You anticipate making any trips back to Peru at this point?
Maybe one more, before too long, and then probably be my last one. Mm-hmm. But
this location in Peru is kind of pretty isolated, isn't it? Is that?
Well, not so much. It's along the Pacific coast where I was.
Okay.
And the Pacific coast in Peru is a desert, really a desert. There's nothing that goes into getting to the Andes Mountains. Yeah. And but the rivers flow off the Andes and they irrigate from it. So, raise lots of crops. And that people live there. And it's about a 7-hour drive south of the city of Lima, the capital of Lima. But that's because you don't travel so fast.
Yeah. That's true. Well, being in Salina, there's a lot of us that everybody, it seems like, who lives in Kansas has got to go through Salina or go to Salina sometime. Can we holler at you, give you a call or something if we come through?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. But I want to say I really enjoyed my time in Goodland. I'm a Kansan. I like Kansas. Goodland is as fine a city in Kansas as there is. I've enjoyed all my days and my years, my time here, and just want folks to know that, and it's a great place.
Well, once again, thank you for being here these years, and thank you for visiting with us on the radio. We did this about 10, 11 years ago, and time flies.
Yes, that's for sure.
I never imagined 11 years ago you'd still be here and be talking with us again on the radio. So
isn't that the truth?
That's great. Yeah. We really enjoyed having you here. So good luck to you in the future, and we hope to see you there in Salina at some time.
Thank you very much.
Come back and see us.
I'll be doing that as well.
Okay.
All
right. Father Norbert DeLabel from Our Lady of Perpetual Help Catholic Church, who's retiring, and he'll be moving on to Salina here in the next week or so. So thanks to him for being with us here on Martin, Jeff, and the Farmchick. Brought to you by Northwest Tech, Eckland Insurance LLC, Goodland Sonic Drive-In, the insurance agency, and Elliot's Home Furnishings here on Eagle Cable Channel 10 and KLOE AM Radio. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next week.